Hello and welcome to the Juan of Words podcast. I'm Juan Alanis.
My name is Angelica Casares.
And guess what, Angelica?
What happened?
We made it.
To when?
We made it.
To when?
To the end of the year.
What do you mean we made it? That's not funny. How's that funny?
To the end of 2020.
Wait, what do you mean? What's your intention with saying we made it?
I mean, we made it. I mean, when we first started this podcast, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. And we kept talking about for several episodes, we kept talking about this seems like this year's never going to end. This seems like this year's never going to finish. And now this is the last week of 2020. The year that so many people were, like, so many of us were like, God, this year's like, seems like it's never ending. This year just seems like it's going to drag on forever. And now we're here, like we're at the end. Yeah,
but what does that mean? That means that everybody else
It's a joke, Angelica. Why are you...
No, I don't like that joke. I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. What do you mean we made it?
We made it. We made it to the end of 2020.
Yeah, of course. Well, not of course, but yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, Juan. That sounded really more. I'm sorry. You're right. We are here. In terms of the podcast, we've been recording now. We've had several episodes.
Not just in terms of the podcast. I think in terms of, like, in general, like, I don't know if you've seen the commercial where 2020 is dating the devil or something. It's like a commercial where they come out and it's like I don't know. It's an off-color joke.
I understand what you're trying to say.
This is an off-color joke that obviously the
I'm trying to understand.
It's not landing right with you.
Nope, it's not. It's not.
But for those of you out there who get it,
for those of you who don't, please tell Juan that no, it's not. It's nope.
But for those of you who do,
you landed off mark. Like you're not even on the runway. Like try again.
I'm off on the grass somewhere. I'm not on the runway.
Yep, try again.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm basically saying that we're here at the end of this year that has been really kind of crazy and hectic, and I would say more than anything, probably unexpected. More than anything,
we've seen that like 2 months in, at the end of April when the summer was beginning. We're like, this is nope. Yep. Yeah. I was watching. So usually my guilty pleasures, I watch vloggers, YouTubers. I've said this before here, and a lot of them are from other countries. They're like Mexican, like some Mexicanas living like in other countries abroad, like where they've been married and things like that. And one of them in Japan, and one of them was talking about how the cases of COVID are even going up in Japan. Yeah. And so, but it was, I guess because they've been not leisure about it, but they've been like from the beginning, they were very, they managed it. They managed it very well from the beginning. They do have a culture of like manners and things like that. Like well-mannered.
Like we don't have manners?
No, like they're more of like in terms of like well-mannered.
No,
like,
I know what you're saying.
You're looked down upon by society if you act a certain way. But here it's more like...
and they're more accustomed to wearing things like masks and doing things like when you're sick, no? Like that you would hold back.
It's a manners. It's a manners thing. Correct. It's a politeness thing where if you're sick, you wear cubrebocas, like you wear a mask. So you don't get other people sick. Yeah. And you try not to leave your house if you're sick. And that's that's the culture there. And so, but I was watching, and I was like, oh, well, it was kind of, it was a time coming for them too, where their cases would go up also. Yeah. And she was saying that they're not even going to get their first round of vaccines until February.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. Well, who knows when we're gonna get ours? Like in terms of like, I know that there are some already out there, but who knows when we actually, as I guess everyday people that are not frontline workers, are gonna get our vaccines in the States. But I mean, I just mentioned that like the end of the year to say that this is kind of an unusual year, and we're definitely not out of the water yet. Like we're definitely not out of the water yet. We're definitely not where we would think that that COVID is over and now we can go to quote unquote life back to normal. We're definitely not there yet.
No, it's going to be all of 2021 also.
Yeah, but I think there is a little bit of sense of excitement, I guess, in thinking about a new year.
I would say this much. Juan. We've for certain have hit are about to hit or just hit the halfway mark. Like, if you've ever done a project and you're like halfway, you're like, okay, now, it's now from here, it's might be a drag, but you're not the finish line, but the end result and what's to come is finally there.
Yeah, like
And
maybe you don't know when exactly the ending is going to happen, but you know what the ending outcome should be.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I think it's going to be all of 2021. My guesstimate is that everybody who wants to be vaccinated, everybody who has the option of getting the vaccine, everybody would have already been vaccinated who wants to, like I said, that by October. October, November, before the holidays, before like next Thanksgiving comes about.
Yeah, and speaking of vaccines, I guess this is a good segue.
Oh, good.
Speaking of vaccines, this is a good segue to remind you that this episode is brought to you by the Houston Health Department here in Houston. And we've been working with them throughout the fall and the beginning of the winter season and talking about COVID-19 and getting tested and all the things that are recommendations for people to continue to do to safeguard and to try to do your part in terms of keeping safe, which are things like wearing masks, social distancing, and getting tested and things like that you can do on a regular basis. So look up the Houston Health Department. Their testing sites, as we've mentioned before, they're free and they don't require any form of identification or citizenship or anything like that. So,
and we ourselves have actually been tested at their offering.
A few times, and it's
twice, 3, something like that.
It's been an easy process, so definitely look them up. The Houston Health Department. The campaign is called Todos Juntos Mejor, or Better Together, and you can find all the information on social media if you just look it up, including on our channels. So if you want to look that up as well. And then also, this is brought to you by Comcast, our friends at Comcast who have been supporting our internet and our productivity here at home and the production of this show by helping us with upload speeds that are faster for our internet service. And are definitely what we use are the X5 pods, and those are the connections that allow us to boost our internet connection in certain rooms in our house, and it allows us to have better performance and to be able to upload this podcast that you're listening to at higher, faster speeds, which is definitely very much appreciated.
Appreciated. Yes, it is.
And then finally, I do want to kind of just highlight one of our newer sponsors that we're working with, which is Remesa. And Remesa is like they actually send it's a transfer service, so you can send money to your family in Latin America, and you can do it's like a wire service. So you basically download an app. And then you're able to send money to your family, to your relatives, to your friends in other countries. And right now they actually have a pretty cool campaign where they're giving away a free trip to Latin America, anywhere in Latin America. So if you go to our social media channels, you'll find like the different ways that you can enter. But it's a pretty cool lobonitodedar.com is the website, and that's where you can go look up the information. But it's a contest that's open right now, and you can win a trip to Latin America. You can also win a meet and greet with a reggaeton artist, I believe, named Sec. I know you listen to his music sometimes, but
I do.
Yeah, I've heard you play his song over.
Oh, okay. Well, sometimes the music, like the record, like unless they're females, I don't know them. I don't know them by name.
I know. I've heard you listen to the music, and
you've heard the males, okay?
Yeah, I think it's Sech. Like, I'm sorry, I'm probably screwing that up.
Yeah, probably.
Obviously, I'm not as hip as I.
You're not reggaetonero as you should be.
Obviously, I'm not as hip as but his music is good. And Remesa, if you look up the app, and you'll definitely find that this.
Well, the fact that they're giving away a trip to Latin America, when the time comes to when you feel comfortable, maybe that's you enter, and then for the holidays, it might be a thing you might be able to do in 2021.
Yeah,
how amazing to be able to spend like a holiday in somewhere like Brazil.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that just kind of thinking about the end of 2020 and thinking about kind of, I guess, a lot of times when you end the year, some people like to begin the new year by thinking about resolutions or thinking about like things like that, or just evaluating maybe like the year before, like in what their like what happened, what didn't happen. But I'd say like sponsors like the ones we just mentioned are probably one thing that has been exciting about our 2020, you know, to be able to work with different companies who believe in us and who've been able to support our project, our little project that started as a podcast here. And then, you know, even for your podcast now that you have a sponsor as well that you're working with.
I do. I have a sponsor that has been has stepped up, and they've the Latina Leadership Series that I was doing, that was only living over on just Crafty Thrifter. That started during Hispanic Heritage Month, and I had some really interesting conversations with some amazing Latinas, and so I wanted to continue it, and I got a sponsor for my Latina Leadership Series. Is it okay if I mention it here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know if
they're friends of the show.
I know they're friends of the show. They're friends of mine. So, but I was like, do I not mention? So, my Latina Leadership Series it's now a sister series to If Not You Then Who podcast, and on there I'm interviewing more Latina leaders within the communities that have been making impacts or have made strides in their careers or fields, or have an exciting, interesting story that they want to tell. And so that has actually been sponsored by Walmart. And so, like I said, it's a sister series of my podcast called If Not You Then Who podcast. Go check it out. Give it a listen.
Yeah, definitely.
Once you listen to this podcast, go check out that one.
Yeah, they're both on Apple Podcasts. You can find us both there.
Yeah, they are. So I've uploaded my first one, which was with Marcela, who is an interesting character. I love that girl.
Yeah, she's I listened to it on my drive. I miss driving because I used to listen to podcasts all the time when I was driving, and now because I don't really drive, and I think podcasts is one of those things that you like. Like, I don't know about everybody, but I like to listen to them when I'm in the car alone. Like, because I just like, I don't know, I feel like I enjoy, like, I'm not bothering anybody by like making them listen to something that I'm listening to, that I just, or maybe because I feel like you have to be in the mood to listen to a podcast.
Okay.
So I was listening to your podcast on my drive yesterday, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I like this is like it's different, you know, because I listen to our podcast sometimes when I'm driving, and then but it's different to hear you on your own and to like hear your perspective. And then the conversation that you were having with her was really interesting because
you know what
she was talking about.
No, go ahead. But
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know what I noticed? That on my podcast, I'm very, like, I'm trying to think, like, on my toes. And so I talk very fast because I'm trying to get everything out of the way. Yeah. Right? But on this podcast, like, I free fall in thought. And so it comes out, like, much more, like, elongated, the words. And then I noticed I was playing around with the mic, and I was, like, trying to be sexy on it.
Which mic? Like, the other mic?
Hey.
The one you're on?
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. Like, well, okay, I'm not having way too much.
Your beginnings were like, something just fell, or like something.
Yeah. Because I was like, okay. I didn't mean to do that. But it's, I go back and I listen to it. I was like, something always happens to me as soon as I turn on the camera.
But do you think that you rush through because of like silence? You think that like when there's silence that you feel like, I need to feel the space? I
do. I get very uncomfortable when there's silence, when it's people that I'm not like you know what I mean? Or like my sisters, or if I'm not with them in person, I do get very nervous about the silence, because I don't think that I'm nervous that they think I'm like going to be like I'm uninterested, or that I myself am uninteresting. I just fear that they're going to like want to stop talking and be like, what is this about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I try to keep it interesting and be like, and I keep a beat and everything. I can beatbox it.
Which is good. I mean, I can definitely hear the difference from one to the other, because I think in here, I think because there's two of us, that it's easy to like, for when you're talking, then I can, you know, I'm quiet and I'm kind of thinking about what I'm going to say. And when I'm talking, sometimes you're quiet, and then all of a sudden you come up with your thoughts, and you're a little bit slow. You're not talking as fast. You're like taking your time a little bit more. So I think that, you can tell the difference. You definitely hear the difference, but I think it's just like, it's like anything else. Like, I think the more you do it, the more you're like, because it's also nerve-wracking, right? To record yourself and to just like,
but you do that too.
Yourself.
I've seen the conversations you've had.
Like,
and
when I
you
do
like
on
you
my own-
stiff up, and I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
relax. But the thing with me is that I'm too relaxed, and I start talking to them like if I'm chit chatting on the phone. I'm like, hey, blah 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 blah.
But I think people enjoy that. I think people
Yeah.
enjoy that, like when you can be relaxed and when you can be casual with them. And I think it comes across when you hear it, like on the end result, which is the podcast, or when you watch it. Like I think it comes across where people are like, oh, okay, like it's chill, like I can listen to this, wherever at my, it's like it's not a hard thing to like pay attention to.
Yeah. But I've enjoyed the entire process of doing this podcast with you, for sure. It is less stressful when I do it with you, as opposed to like doing it like an interview with somebody else, because I always want to pull out the most interesting things from them. And I never want that moment to get away from me. And so I'm trying, and I'm just hoping that they're willing to open up. And so I you know what I mean? And so me coming in like, oh, like, yeah, it's chill, we're cool. Like, I don't know if they're going to be like interested in that, but I've noticed that when you when you're engaged, and that's the way I just happen to engage with people. It's just my mind is like 100 miles an hour, and I'm like, my thought is trying to keep up with my mouth, and my mouth is trying to keep up with my thought, and it just crosses itself.
It's almost like you're putting your reporter hat on, and you're trying to get them to open up to you, and you're trying to get them to like, confide in you and to share things with you.
See, I hear the reporter hat, but then I'm like, I don't know if I'm like not like that,
well, no,
because
not that you're
I feel
a reporter,
like
but
here, and it's no offense to anybody out there who's a journalist, who's a reporter, who's a podcaster, in terms of like getting like information, but I feel sometimes it can be intrusive, and so I never want to be intrusive, and so I try to get them to talk to me in terms of like a certain topic, so like that you don't have to tell me like things that are unnecessary. And I always remind them from the beginning, like, look, my conversations are never live, and I go in and I edit and I edit and I edit and I edit, and it's never to make you come out looking like, you know what I mean? Like my perspective is never to make you look like a bad person, because that's the last thing I want to do. Or to make you feel like where you stumble across your words, like I'll edit that out. Like I go, like, you see me where I'll spend for like 20-30 minutes of a conversation, I'll edit my ass for like 3-4 hours. Oh my God, I picked up that word from Edgar. Jesus heavens, the word ass.
You're definitely a lot more generous editing than I am.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I'm kind of like, anything that's in there is kind of fair game to me. Like,
you see, that's not me.
I don't do it with the intention of like, oh, I'm gonna like get you. No, like I think I just assume that if somebody says something while we're talking and they know that we're recording, that it's okay to put out there. But there have been like, we've talked about like before, where there's been situations where it's like, oh, okay, like maybe we shouldn't put that, or maybe we should take that out, and then when explained to me, I'm like, okay, that makes sense, and then I'll take it out. But
I've had to physically go and pull a video down and re-edit it and pull it back up. Ouch!
I'm not always like, I'm not, and my gut reaction is not always to think like, oh, I need to edit. I need to be that like generous as you are with them, with the interviewee.
Yeah. Again, that's just I want them to see themselves the way I see them. And sometimes you mess up, and like maybe they're just like me, where their mind is going 100 miles an hour and their mouth is trying to keep up, and you say things unintentionally, or you stutter and you come across like I edit to where they would feel comfortable the way I would feel comfortable.
But I think given any situation, like you definitely want to establish a rapport with people, and I think like when you're interviewing them, so I think that depending on how well you know them, like you were saying, that what their comfort level is, like I guess between us, because we know each other so well, like there's definitely a big rapport there. So we feel like we can just talk to each other however, because we're like, oh, it's just Juan, or it's just Angelica, But
yeah, on here I know you're editing skills, and I know you edit most of these, and I know that you actually, for you, it's fair game. And so sometimes I get frustrated and I get mad, or so when I'm on here and I don't respond, I'm like, because I'm not going to give you the satisfaction, because it's not fair game. I'm not going to give it to you so you can like post it.
And and I'm used to that, because I was a reporter before, so I understand that people will self-edit when they know that when they talk to you, it's fair game.
Yeah.
So they will they'll take pauses, and they'll think about what they're saying before they actually say it, because they're like, well, this guy's gonna put it out there.
Yeah, and so sometimes I've done it intentionally, like I've said things intentional because I knew you were gonna say it.
Now I know.
So every time when you do that, you look around to see my reaction or to get my reaction, I'm like, I'm not giving it to you. You're not gonna get what you're looking for.
I'm not gonna give you the satisfaction.
Nope, I sure is not.
No, but I wanted to touch briefly a little bit, and not that I want to revisit the topic that you covered, but I listened to it and I thought it was an interesting topic.
Okay, which one?
Where you talked about being a hater.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I guess the gist of what I listened to and what I gathered from what you
was it understood? Did you understand it? Okay.
Well, you tell me, because this is what I understood from it.
Okay.
I understood that you were in a bad place.
Yeah.
And during the whole year, and so this year that you were in a bad place, you considered yourself a hater because you didn't
wait this year.
No, not this year. I'm saying
that year.
That year.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm saying this year that you consider yourself a hater. You were a hater because you couldn't be happy for people.
You back up on your bullshit, don't belong to me. You acting all sleazy, I don't like what I see. I got all the game, don't get fucked in your brain. I can do you worse than you ever did me first.
Hey, this is Angelica Casares.
And this is Juan Alanis.
Thank you so much for joining us on season 2 of Juana Words Podcast. You can find us on
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, Spotify, and other platforms. Also on our website at juanawords.com. And we hope you enjoyed the episode that you're listening to right now.
And if you enjoyed it, you can leave us a review and a thumbs up. Especially on the Apple platform, the higher ratings and the reviews we get, the more listeners we actually can be found by.
Yeah.
So
it really does help us. So we really would appreciate it, a rating or a review on Apple Podcast. And until next time, thank you.
See you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Back up on my piece shit, I don't care if you don't like it. I'm really different, don't gotta show you I'm like that. Like the baby.
Yeah, I guess the premises was that I was being a hater, and I knew I was intentionally being a hater. Like, I thought people were over celebrating things. I thought you were being too much. I thought people were just making a hoopla of things that just weren't worth making a hoopla. Well, how dare you? My thing was how dare you be so insensitive to me and what I'm going through? And that mindset, it boggles me to this day, because it still makes sense to me, and that hurts me. That still makes sense to me. It still makes sense to me to think that people were being unsensitive. And I know the intention wasn't that. And the thing was that they weren't living my life experience. And so how could they be sensitive to something that they're could they really relate? And if they related, how much could they relate? And it's unfair for me to do that. But it's a monopoly. It's like when when you lose a property on Monopoly, and you lose at it, it's the game of life.
Yeah. Well, and just to give a little background for the people that
was a horrible analysis to Monopoly in life. Sorry.
No, I don't think it was a bad Monopoly. I don't think it was a bad
comparison.
Yeah. Okay. But I think that just to give a little background for the people that haven't listened to the episode yet, and and if you haven't, go and listen to it, because I think you did a better job of explaining it than I'm doing. But I think the background was that your sister had passed away, and you were having a hard time with it, understandably so, definitely, for that year after. So you felt like the world was moving on, nothing had happened, and they not knowing that for you this major thing had happened in your life, this major loss.
Well, I guess what I didn't explain on that episode in that podcast was the fact that as soon as my sister found out she had cancer, they had already told her it was an advanced cancer. She didn't take it well. It was pretty hard on her. And so, and by pass of her, it came on for us really strong. And I think watching everybody take it differently, I still, to this day, I still go back and I think, how my sisters reacted, how my mom reacted, how everybody reacted, and how some people were like, they were in abundance of promise, like, oh, you can do this, you can beat this. And so, and it was a lot. And at some point I kept thinking, like, why, it's false hope, but my sister didn't need my pessimistic ass, like being fucking sour about her diagnosis. Like, she needed me there. And I feel like I wasn't a good sister. And so it has a lot of backstory to it. And I was frustrated
because you didn't talk about that on your episode.
I didn't. And because I wanted to keep it on, like, for those who are, I feel like lately, I said it there on the episode, I feel like lately people have been feeling really like abandoned by their family and their friends, or maybe they're feeling hurt by them, and a lot of the times the word hate is kind of thrown around very loosely. Well, it's like, oh, my family hates me, or my family's being haters, or like that's not what I'm saying. Like, oh my God, like it's not the victimization that I'm trying to like assess. What I'm saying is that there's a lot that happens when somebody's being hurtful to you.
And sometimes even if they're not being hurtful intentionally, like they're not even realizing that maybe you're being hurt by something that they're doing. But I really I like the fact that you really leaned into the like claiming the word hater and saying like, yeah, well, I was a hater, or admitting to the fact that
for that whole year, sure, I was.
Because I think a lot of times I think that's a very human thing, and that's why that's what I liked about that podcast like episode, and and that's why I like about your podcast, because I think you like to talk about those things that sometimes people don't want to lean into, but that's what I really liked about that one. And it made me think, because so often you hear the word like hater, like we throw it around so much, like
we hear it a lot.
Whether we're thinking like, oh well, nobody liked my post, so everybody's being haters, or if you're thinking like maybe somebody was mean to me, or somebody's like in your instance where you were saying like you were having a difficult time and you just felt like you couldn't be happy for anybody else, and so you felt like people were being haters too.
I guess what I was trying to say also is that it's easy to pawn off your feelings on somebody else. It's easy to be like, it's easy to be like, oh, they're haters, and that's why that's it. Well, hold on. Why we've established that when people hate, it has nothing to do with you. If that's already established, then why are you insisting that that's just the way it is?
Right.
Like, why are we playing victim?
I guess because we internalize a lot of times, or as people.
But isn't it easier? Isn't it easier to pawn off your feelings on somebody else? Like instead of being
instead of like looking internal, like instead of looking at yourself or being like, well, why do I feel this way? I guess right. Then it's easier to say, well, Angelica's just being a hater. She's just like,
yeah, you're right, and I was being a hater. I was being a hater.
Like before when we started this podcast, you said, "Are you gonna wear that ugly hat?" And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna wear it. And and I could have taken that as being like, Angelica's being a hater, she don't like my hat.
Well, I didn't see it like in camera. It looks pretty cute. It looks cute, but like from back here, I'm like, baby.
But you understand how that's
yeah, I know
like
what you're saying.
Thing of perspective, like. To like, I could have taken that and been like, or I could have taken it and been like, I could have had doubts and been like, you know what, let me switch my hat. Or let me
you could have.
But like you
just told me, you're like, yes, and I'm like, okay,
I'm just gonna wear it. But I think it has to do with perspective, which is what you're saying. Like, I guess a lot of times, if your perception is that, oh, you know what, it's easier to say that everybody's being a hater towards me than it is for me to actually. Not that you have to analyze, but maybe just think about like, well, why do I feel that way?
Yeah, like I said, a lot of the times it's easy to pawn off your feelings on somebody else, that you can just say, oh, well, it's just, you know, they're always like that, and they're always going to hate me because I'm just like, but that's not okay. I think that's a false sense of reality to think that somebody just looks at your life and just hates on it,
it's because like when people say haters gonna hate.
Yeah, and you know, and as a former hater is gonna hate, and a lot of the times I was hating and people didn't know, they didn't even know I was hating on them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think
they didn't even know I was hating on them.
I think it's human nature to hate on, to also have a little bit, to be like that, because I think we all go through rough patches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you go through a rough patch, sometimes you don't want, like, the last thing you want to see is like everybody being like all like happy and going on about their lives, or like sharing them, you know, like, you know, the monotonous things, even if it is like great news, exciting news for them. Even in the podcast you mentioned a little bit about how even when we won the award for best content creator, that you were upset, and I was like, I didn't even realize that you were upset. Like,
I wasn't upset. I was being a hater. To me, I was a downgrading.
You were like, he didn't deserve to win.
I was like, there was somebody on that list that was much better than him. Why did he get it? Why did we have to receive this right now?
And then I tried to remember. I was like, but wait, we did go out to eat. I was like, but maybe we could have gone out to eat somewhere nicer that night or something. Like,
we could have done something better.
Like, we could have gone out dancing or something.
Or something. No, but I had thought to myself, and I still believe that not that I still believe you don't deserve it, but I still believe that, like, there was great contender up there. There was an amazing contender up there.
I for sure, because I was convinced that I wasn't going to
surprised. We were both surprised.
I was convinced. I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And so when I won, I was like, what? And I even said it when I went up there. I was like, wait, I can't believe, why am I up here?
Yeah, you did. But I remember going back to the hotel room and thinking like, why did he win it? Like, why did he win it? Like, we're so, like, I had been in my hater phase for a while, that I was just like, we don't deserve it. He doesn't deserve it. We don't deserve it. We don't deserve anything right now. Yeah. Life sucks. Like, everything. I hate everybody. I hate everything. I hate that they thought of him. I hate that they thought of us. I hate it. And when you think a sense of like being a hater, like, it's just not, they're not just hating you and your life. Like, they're hating the circumstance. They're hating the world as it is, because it is the way it is. And I was hurt by the world, and I didn't know how to get back at it. So I kept trying to get back at it through everything, even myself, even our accomplishments. I you know what I'm saying? And so I guess a sense of like a more sense, it's more that blog was more a sense of like, this is what happens when you're in a bad place. And you're right, haters too, they're out there. A lot of the times you don't even know they're hating. You don't even know they're like, you know.
But was part of the reason that you did that is because you wanted people to know, like, if you're feeling like a hater right now, that's okay? Was that kind of part of your thinking around behind that?
Sort of, yeah. That it's a human, like you said earlier, it's human nature to feel like that. Maybe at some point in your life, maybe you don't know how to cope with things, and your way of coping with things is just being negative. Yeah. And so it is, and that's okay. That's total. Not that that's okay. Like, don't go out there and sabotage fucking people.
Don't be like the telenovela ladies that are
don't fucking do that shit. Like, don't sit on it for years and sabotage the world for it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, don't fester it for like years and be like, I can sit on this. Like, I can sit on this turmoil and get back at you when it's necessary because I'm petty. Like, no, totally. Like, be petty on small things, but don't sit there and ruin people's jobs and sabotage shit. Like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, I think it was two things. Like, that from on one end it was that, but on the other end, I feel like you were also talking to the people that feel like they're being hated on.
Yeah, not to take it personally.
Not to take it so personal, because it's like, you know, it may just be that person's going through a rough patch.
Yeah, and I'm not saying be forgiving. Like, if you gotta mute, and I gave an example. If you gotta mute, suspend, like, poof somebody out of your life, girl, do it. You got it, or guy. People out there, if you gotta like you gotta get away with some of that negativities that's just hanging around, and you're like, you gotta go. Hey, they gotta go. It's your life. You decide who stays, you decide who's out. But if you're okay with it, and maybe giving that podcast and that explanation as to why they might be like that, maybe later their tone might change. And you might be happy that you stayed around, or it might give you a little bit of explanation. Like, I'm not trying to give an excuse. Don't ever give people excuses to treat you like shit. Never do that. But if I can give you a reason to it, and if you want to, you know, you can be like, hey, homegirl, you're being a bitch, and I'll see you in about a year. You might need the time off. I'm trying to be here for you, but you're not letting me because you're being a bitch. I'll see you in a fucking year. And you come back and they're like, hey, you know what? You're right. I was being a bitch. And you're like, okay, hey, cool. Me and you can connect.
Yeah. No, I mean,
does that make sense?
No, it does, and like I said, that's why I wanted to just kind of briefly mention it here, because I feel like it was a really good episode, and I liked those topics. So I think you should do more of those. You think? I'm advocating for more of those.
More of those, okay.
But you know, I think it also kind of made me think about like reflections, because sometimes when you're going through something, you don't necessarily. You can't necessarily see the things like how you're experiencing it. You can't necessarily see it. So sometimes after you've gone through something, whether it's like a sad thing or a happy thing or like anything, you know, like when you look at something in hindsight, you know, it's a lot different, and you can have a lot more perspective when you're looking at things in hindsight. And I mentioned that because like yesterday I went over to my mom's house and we sat down and we had a long conversation, and we were just talking, and I was asking her a bunch of questions about like when she grew up, like things about her life and my dad's life, like early on when they met, how they like lived and things like that, just because I was curious. You know, I never really talked to them about that. And then, you know, she was telling me things, and she was sharing a lot of their history, and I was like, oh, like I had no idea. And even to the point where she was like sharing like things that she was guilty of, or she felt guilty about, or things like that. And you know, one of the things that I told her, I was like, well, you know, I think it's hard for us to know like when we're going through it, to be able to understand like what it is until like,
isn't it hard to detach from the moment?
Yeah, because you can't really like it's not like you can step back and be like, oh, like let me analyze the situation right now.
You're in the midst of it.
You're in the middle of it.
You tell me how you get out of a storm to see how big the storm is.
Exactly, which is like the kind of like what you were thinking, like what you were talking about being a hater.
Yeah,
like it's like in that year that you were a hater, it was hard for you to step out and be like, oh, well, I'm being a hater.
My year of hater. Yeah, it was difficult because I was annoyed as fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how else to explain it. I don't know how else to explain those moments. Like I was vicious.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
Well, no, I'm not agreeing with you about that. I'm just saying like yeah, like because I think now, like right now, like it's been a few years since that happened. But I think maybe in 2 years, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, you're gonna feel differently about the way that you feel about it right now. Like I think that, you know, your perspective constantly changes. You know?
It does. You know, I had the lucrativeness of actually being able to go through therapy before my sister was diagnosed. And so I had the tools to understand what I was going through. And even though it took me forever to realize what was happening, I still had the tools, and I was able to be like, why am I so frustrated? Why is this my constant feeling of anger, resentment? Why am I here? And I had the tools, the prior tools, to be able to like assess myself. Right. And so I was like, holy shit, I had and it took me a while to stop. It took me a while because, like I said, it's really easy to blame, to push your feelings on somebody else and blame something else.
Yeah, and I think because it's so easy, like we end up doing it very often. You know, where we just project our like what we're feeling on other people.
Yeah.
And but no, I mean, I think even when we're talking about something like as simple as the award thing, you know, that Hispanicized, you know, even something like that, like in the moment, like I felt a certain way about it. Like I felt like, oh, you know, I can't believe that I won. You know, a year later, I felt like, oh wow, that was pretty cool that I won. And like, you know, like I was like, you know, like I'm gonna put it everywhere. I'm gonna tell everybody that
this
I won.
Damn award. It haunts us still.
And now, like, I'm not as like doubtful about the, having won it. Like,
no doubt, Juan. That award was deserved.
Well, no, I'm not trying to get you to say that it's deserved.
No, but that's what I know what you're trying to say. I know what you're saying.
Like now,
that
I feel like
award was deserved, but you're right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and like, but who knows, like, in 10 years, like, how I'm gonna feel about it, like, if I'm gonna feel the same way, or if I'm gonna be like, oh, I don't, like, who knows, like, so I feel like it's constantly changing. And so, like, in a year like this year, like in 2020, like, I feel like right now I feel a certain way about like the things that have happened this year, like, in terms of just the like little changes that we've seen. But I think
can I be honest, there's moments that have happened during this year, for example, the growth of additional this podcast, my Latina Leadership Series, and a couple of other things that have been happening, and it's grown the momentum that I've been trying to have for years prior. Going through all of that, and like the growth that I've been doing now, personal growth, yeah. And also, it's trying to establish myself too. That growth also. I still minimize it. I still make it like I'm still like. It's still like, oh no, like little,
like you don't
little
think
shit.
it's
Yeah.
like you don't think it's much.
Yeah, I'm like, it's little goldfish, dude. Like, it's like I'm not a contender. I'm not like somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just out here being like, I'm not a professional. I'm not a careerist. Like, I'm dabbling. Like, I'm a hobbyist. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's me. But I know I'm trying to take a lot of what I'm doing serious. I know that.
But it's all in your attitude, don't you think? Like,
it is, and I have the attitude when I come. Like, I come on and I do my research. I come on sometimes with the topics. Like, I made sure that we covered some of the topics that I knew we were going to cover eventually at the beginning, because I didn't want them to convolute the rest of the conversations, because I wanted to establish them, period. And I think period. I knew some of the conversations were going to bring up, for example, my sister's death. You can listen to that podcast like a couple of podcasts ago, so you can hear about my sister and like her life and your dad and the things that have been happening, like the death of my cousin and stuff like that recently, in 2020. And so, but those conversations, I made sure they were like hit hard from the beginning, because when we mentioned them, I wanted the people who have been listening to know where we were coming from.
Yeah.
And so,
no, I think it was definitely a good foundation, a good strategy. So, but I can relate to what you're saying, because I like even listening to our podcast, like when I listened to it just recently, like I was in my mind, I was like, oh, well, yeah, we have a podcast, but it's just like, I mean, we just record in our room.
we record in this like a 5x5 room.
Yeah, so like we record in this little room. I mean, we're basically just like, so I was kind of minimizing it too, because I was like, it's just it's just a little podcast, but then I'm like, but no, I mean, it's not just a little podcast. It's a podcast. Like it's a podcast that we're able to put out, and that we're able to like put out into the universe, and then people, however many listen, few or many, it is a podcast that's out there, that's available for people to listen to. I mean, it's something that we've been able already to bring on people to sponsor the show. So it's like, it's not just a little show, and it's not that's the defining thing.
No, here's the thing. My defining moment as to why the podcast matters to me and why I'm trying to establish it is the fact that the fact that it's
that was not dramatics.
That was not dramatics. I forgot. I lost my thought with your like hitting of the microphone. Fuck, dude. Never mind. Go ahead.
No. You were saying that for the show, that your reason for like wanting it to take it more seriously.
No, not wanting to take it more seriously. For me, is that like I'm proud of it. Like that's my defining moment. That's how I know this. I'm taking this serious, because I'm proud of it. Yeah. And there's been other projects that I've done where we've kind of done it and sort of done it, and I'm like, it is what it is. I'm like, I care, but it matters. But in retrospect, like, it is fun, and this one is fun. But I'm proud because I've put the attention that it needs to it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think that maybe part of it is that you like, I do take it seriously too, and I'm proud of it too, but I guess part of it is also like you're almost like you're afraid that, you know, if it doesn't, that if people don't like it,
I'm still proud of it.
that you're gonna be like, oh well, yeah, that is my podcast.
Well, 2020, like in a while from now, like if my nieces and nephews, like as they grow up and they happen to come across it, am I proud that they're going to listen to some of the episodes? So yeah, hell yeah.
Well, I think it's a really good way of like archiving, like just like conversations and just like where we are, like in our lives right now, because like, you know, you never know like where you're going to be. And like I said, like we were talking about earlier, your perspective constantly changes. So, you know, it could be that we revisit a topic that we talked about before, and, you know, we revisit it and we're like, and people are listening and be like, wait, they're like completely like off of where they were like 5 years ago. Now they're like talking about it like completely different. Like, and I think it's just like, and that's okay. You know, that's part of the process. And I think, it's cool that we can have something like this that we can go back to and listen to and be like, oh, you know what, like, you know, we were so young and naive, or we were or whatever it is, dumb. or like, or, you know, maybe we were right on it.
We were young and naive. When we're not young, we might be naive. We're not young.
We were right on the money. Like, it's either or. I think it's and I agree with you. It's a cool project, and if you're watching the video and I keep rubbing my eyes, that's because that light is like bothering my eyes. Not
which light?
I think this one. I don't know why. The one in front, like, it's making me like my eyes water, so I keep rubbing my eyes.
Quiere llorar.
Como que like I'm crying. So I'm like, people must be like, he's just crying the whole episode. I'm not. It's just the lighting in here. But no, I mean, I think that like, it just made me think about, you know, perspective. And I guess what I was getting at is that, I guess, even though I'm feeling a certain way about things now about this year, I think it's going to be a long time before like I can truly like have an actual perspective on the things that happened this year and what this year actually means in my life. You know, because I think it's almost like the not to like compare it, but like almost like a 9/11. Like in the moment, it was like such a, like, you know, like you couldn't get out of it. It was like you were there, you were living it, you were feeling it, like you couldn't get out of it. There was no way that you could like have a perspective. Even a year later, you were like, it was still so fresh. And so I think, but now when you think back about it and you think about, you're able to, you know, not reason, but you're able to think about it a little bit more, like, okay, well, this, you know, that's why I felt this way. That's why, you know, this year made me like maybe switch things and made like, it's kind of like a domino effect. Like where like one thing happens and then like certain things are triggered. Like when you see TV shows where they go back and they, you know, change one thing in the past, and then because they changed that one thing in the past, then all these other things in the future changed.
I don't know what series you're watching, but okay.
I was watching Smallville. So.
Oh. No wonder. I was like, what are you talking about? What is this in reference to? I watch like Seinfeld and like Everybody Loves Raymond. They don't go in the past and like change one small thing. Nobody travels to the past. Like, what the hell's going on here?
You need to be watching Smallville because there's always something that. No, I've been on a fix with the kid because we've been here together over the holidays, watching TV a lot, and and we've been binging the Smallville, and they have a lot of crazy episodes like that. But no, it just made like I think that like if you change one thing in history, or like if you change, like, say the pandemic.
This is a horrible one. You gotta.
Let me try to salvage.
Okay.
If the pandemic hadn't happened, like imagine, like, you know, all the like trickling things that might have not happened.
Like what? Well,
like all the little things that might have not happened. Like a lot of people may not have spent a lot of time together. You know, maybe some people will still be married. Maybe some people, some people. No, I'm playing. It's just a bad joke again. But
God, you're like off this, man. Get off the podcast.
Or maybe, like, you know, maybe we wouldn't have started this podcast. You know, because we wouldn't have like stopped to actually make.
I think about it. Had the pandemic that's like begun, like I think my cousin would still be here.
Yeah.
I think about moments like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, like even something like that, that's like definitely more serious, like definitely more like life altering.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, definitely. Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, but it's all connected, and I think that's the crazy thing.
Like, had she been like in the hospital and gotten sick, like we would have been there to be able to advocate, and maybe they would have figured out what was wrong with her, and they would have been able to help her, and she would still be here with us.
Or and like the medical like staff wouldn't have been, not that they were short. Like, I don't know if they were short staffed or not, but obviously, like dealing with COVID, a global pandemic, had to have some kind of impact.
Yeah, for sure.
On their like resources and how much time they were able to dedicate to patients.
Yeah, I know for sure.
Yeah.
And you're forced to be reckoned with when you have an advocate there at the hospital with you, and when you're there alone. Yeah. And all they have to go based on is, like they're not there on like by your bedside 24/7, so they only assess your vitals. That's it. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. I do think about moments like that, like things would have not happened. I think the podcast might have happened regardless, because I was thinking of doing video anyway, and I was thinking of doing like what I was starting to do, which is how we got we got some of the part of the equipment. Yeah. But I think it would have happened. I think the topics would have been different. Who knows? The podcast had been better. It might have been like we might have been able to like do interviews like in person, and they would have been like totally better.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, who knows?
Yeah, you never know. But that's the thing.
That you'll never know. So is that what you're trying to say, that you'll never know?
No, I'm just the thing. I'm like, that's the thing. You just never know. Like in Smallville, like you just like.
All right, you know what? No.
Like one thing happens and then everything else shifts, and then you're like, wait, but that might have been more interesting. If things would have panned out that way, like it might have been more interesting. But I don't want to drag that on too long. I just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit about perspective and like I guess reflections and but. I guess kind of to maybe conclude or lead in the direction of concluding the show. I know you don't believe in resolutions.
Oh.
Do you believe in resolutions?
I don't believe in resolutions. Like I said in that podcast that I did on my own. If not you, the new podcast, go check it out. I believe in goals.
Okay.
Not resolutions, goals.
But when you think about 2021, like, do you have goals? Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to share?
Yeah. Have more courage. Be less fearless. Be fearless. Have more courage. Be fearless. Have more courage. Be fearless. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. Have more courage. Be fearless.
Have more courage. Be fearless. Okay.
That's my goal.
That's a good t-shirt. You should make it.
That's my mantra.
Patent.
Patented. Patented. Here, you've heard it first on the Juan of Words podcast. No, I'm just kidding. No, but that's my goal for 2021. What was it again? Forgot it.
Have more courage.
Have more courage. Be fearless.
Have more courage. Be fearless.
Courage. You know what?
Every it's like the accent thing that comes out like
courage.
Like you like words slip out and they're like not pronounced the right way.
Vulnerable. I cannot say that word.
That's when people can tell like, oh yeah, they're definitely Hispanic. They're like pronouncing stuff like it's in Spanish.
We twang it. We're not only are we like talking in Spanish, we're talking in Texan.
Yeah. No, but I guess I think those are good ones for me. Like I guess the only thing I think the one thing that I've taken away from 2020 and that I want to take into 2021 is like to pay more attention to I guess what I would consider like signs. Like signs,
like from above, like from aliens,
like signs,
like the movie.
No, like signs all around you. Because I think
the movie.
No, you're making a bad comparison. No, but I mean, like, I think like sometimes things happen, and like if you don't pay attention, like you don't realize that those things are like a sign for you. Okay. Or like I believe that sometimes, not everything, like I'm not walking around like, oh, like, ooh, where's the next sign coming from? But I do think like certain things happen and they're like, maybe they're not like signs that are like so existential, but maybe they're just like little nudges to be like, hey, like maybe you should be more considerate. Hey, maybe you shouldn't be
you have to have signs to tell you to be more considerate?
Sometimes. Like I do sometimes.
Don't side-eye me. What the hell was that? What do you mean? What do you mean?
But you know, like sometimes, like if
can you elaborate on what that means?
Like what, the signs?
Yeah.
Well, like say say somebody like you're at a grocery store, and you're minding your business and you're paying your food, or you're getting ready to pay for your food,
groceries,
and then they say, the cashier says, oh, the person in front of you just paid for your food, or they already paid for you, so you don't have to worry about it. And like you could take it as just like oh wow, that was nice of them, or you could take it as like, oh wow, that was a nice act. Like, why did that happen to me? Like, why did that happen to me today? Like, why today? Why to me? Why here? And then I feel like if you take
that's
a moment,
more common than anything, right?
Well, yeah, but I think it may be common, but it's still a gesture.
It is still a gesture. You're right.
And
it still is. Yes.
And it's a gesture, and I think it's like it's a moment. It's like a calling. Like, I don't know if it's a calling, but it's like a thing. Like the way I take it, the way I receive that, and the way that I want to intend to receive that in 2021, at least moving forward, is to actually stop and recognize it as a gesture and say, you know what, like that was a gesture. Like, why did that happen to me? And then, like, what can I do to like, or what should I like? Is there something in there for me to take away from this experience? Is it that maybe I should be kinder? Maybe when I see a homeless person on the street, I shouldn't just be like, oh, I don't have any cash. Maybe I should be kinder and be like, you know what? Maybe I have $1. Here you go. Like maybe it's like a calling to like to maybe not be so orgulloso, or not be like, like it just like to me it's like those little things that happen, and it doesn't have to be like an act of kindness. It could just be like anything, like any little thing that happens in your daily life that is different, or that makes you take a moment to say, oh, that was weird, or why did that happen? To not just brush it off and be like, oh, well, that was weird, but to like take a moment and think about it. And like,
do you want to be present? Yeah,
I guess like being present and like being more aware. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. More aware of like things and like that, and be like, oh, okay, like like not just brush it off and not be in such a rush that you're like, oh, I just got to keep moving. Like it's not a big deal. So to me, like that's my kind of like, that's my, I guess, not resolution, but that's what I
still don't understand what the resolution was.
To be more aware.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You always do this to me where you're like, I mean, you don't understand explanations.
Babe, because you go in like, and I follow you, but where you started off was like, oh, my resolution, and then you went on an explanation.
Yeah. I was trying to tell a story, but I wasn't doing I didn't do a good job of telling the story.
I was lost for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we reconnected, and then you lost me again. And then I was like, wait, he was talking about his resolution. You had a comparison. You had a T-shirt slogan, and I'm just like, aware. You're like, I don't know, but like this, but like that.
Yeah. I guess because I say that, because I do explain it like that, like, but I don't know, like this, like that, but no.
It sounded like a Subway order, where she was like, whatever, like toasted or not toasted. Yes, no, maybe not. You know what? No. And then they like put cheese, and you're like, not toasted. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, what? Where's it going? Where's it going?
Put this and then not that, and like, this and that, and
take that, minus, subtract. You know what?
But what you end up with is aware.
You did. You had a recipe for aware. Okay, be more aware. Be more present and aware.
Be more aware and be more present, and just like look at the things that happen around you, and like not
watch the movie Signs, but look at the signs actually.
Right. Not just brush things off, like, but actually take a moment to like be in them. And I'll stop there because otherwise I'm just gonna go in another.
We're so goofy.
But no, I think that's a good place to stop the conversation.
I like that. I like the resolution.
Yeah.
Like tap into awareness.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm trying. I've been trying to do it a little bit more, but I think I know I always keep saying like the older you get, and because I don't feel like I'm that old, but like I do feel like I do feel like there's certain things that I've done, that I do now that I didn't do before, and I attribute a lot of them to like getting older.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just me being romanticizing getting old, or or that's just like part of life, but. Yeah. To me, like that's what it is. It's like I just want to be more aware, more present, like you said. So aware and present on my T-shirt.
Aware and present
on my T-shirt. No.
Yeah. Yeah, lean into being self-aware.
Yeah. So we'll see. Well, I don't know how good I'll do.
We don't know. That was your resolution. What do you mean I will see?
No, because
what do you mean we'll see? How did you exit that real fast?
Well, that's why I don't make resolutions, because I.
Oh, so now you don't have resolutions. what was this whole topic about then? Now, what the hell? What happened?
No, I was gonna say we'll see how I do in 2021.
No, that's not the way resolutions work. You can't say it and be like, we'll see. What the hell?
That's my intent. I'm putting it out there, and then we'll see what happens.
Oh hell no, Juan. What?
But anyways, no. If you have resolutions,
if
you have a better recommendation of resolutions, or you can explain my resolution
Tell us your
in
resolution.
a better way.
Tell us your resolution.
Let us know. Yeah, share with us your resolution.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people don't do resolutions. A lot of people just do like words for the year.
Yeah,
they'll do like the.
I'm gonna do some words too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know what words yet?
Well, one of them is going to be courage and the other one's going to be fearless for sure. And we'll see what else we add on.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. But no, because this is the last week, this is going to come out like before the new year, hopefully. So
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yeah. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And
be safe.
Be safe for sure.
Be safe. If you go out, don't drink and drive.
Yeah.
Try not to get it around a lot of people. Remember, before you go out there, and if you do plan to go visit a family that's not within your immediate family, like the people you live with, please get tested. Get tested before you leave. Take care of yourself. Wear a mask.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'll just reiterate a little bit about what you said about the hater thing. I think that was a cool. I think that was a cool conversation to for both the people that feel like haters and the people that feel like they're being hated on. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're at a point where you're like at the end of the year and everybody's going to be so excited about 2021, and like usually that's the time of year where everybody's celebrating and you're happy and you're like, so whichever end of the spectrum you're on. Mm-hmm. Listen to Angelica's words and what she said about like how why she made that show, because I think it's important.
Why she made that show?
Yeah,
that episode,
because I think it's an important message. But with that, we'll say thank you to our generous sponsors for sponsoring this show. Woo-woo. And again, that's the Houston Health Department, Comcast here in Houston, and also Remesa. So thank you guys, and until next time, we will see you.
Go listen to If Not You Then Who podcast and the Latino Leadership Series.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. With that, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hasta luego.